Okay, good evening, everyone. So in the last class, we completed the VPC, right? VPC peering. Okay. So then today we will go with another service called Route 53. So Route 53 is an Amazon managed service which will provide or which will act as a domain registrar and a DNS manager. It will provide two different services. One is a domain registrar and the second one is a DNS manager. What exactly those two terms are? What is the meaning of a domain registrar and what is the use of a DNS server? So we can say like Route 53 is highly available AWS managed service which acts as domain registrar and DNS manager. So first, what are those two things? Like the first one is a domain registrar, right? The first one is a domain registrar. What is the meaning of this domain registrar? Or what the domain registrar will do? Do you know any domain registrars available in the market? Okay. So let us try to understand what exactly the domain registrar is. So I think you guys know every website is accessible using a website name, right? But the websites are available in terms of the IP address, right? So let us say you have a simple website. It can be any kind of like HTML or Java, whatever it is, that doesn't matter. To host that website, first we will have a server, right? In that server, you will host a website, right? And it will have a public IP address, let us say 1.2.3.4. And let us say this website is yahoo.com, like yahoo.com website. So how we will access the website which is running on this website generally? The user can access the website using the IP address. Every communication in the network is only possible using the IP address. But have you ever tried or have you ever accessed any website using the IP address in your browser? We never did, right? Instead of, what we are doing is we will type the website name so that the user is able to access the website which is running on this particular server. Now the question is how this yahoo.com domain name will redirect or will take the user request to this specific IP address. So for that, what exactly will happen in the backend is there will be a DNS server. There will be a DNS server. You can compare this DNS server with the phone book in your mobile phone. What is the use of a phone book? Let us say your friend has a mobile number. It is little bit difficult to remember like hundreds of numbers, right? What we do, we will store the number with a name. So whenever you type the name and click on call button, the request will go to the phone book and it will get the number of that particular name and the call will be connected to the particular number. In the same way, in the DNS, they will maintain the records like this 1.2.3.4. So whenever user type yahoo.com in the browser, the request will go to the nearest DNS server. And in the DNS server, it will look for the yahoo.com record or yahoo.com domain name that is called as a domain name. If it find yahoo.com domain name, it will get the IP address and the request, the same IP address will be informed to the browser and the request will go to that particular IP address. This entire process will happen in the backend. Just we are able to use the yahoo.com domain name. This is called as a domain name. And the fully qualified domain name contains a dot, something like abc.xyz. So this is called as a root. There is no domain without having a dot. If you say ABC, that is not a fully qualified domain name. That's why if you take any website, you can see something like .com, .in, .org, right? That is called as fully qualified domain name. Now the question is how to create these records in the DNS. DNS is a service provided by someone. Can I go to the DNS server and I can create something like google.com, and can I point the google.com to my IP address? No, because I am not the owner of the google.com. To create such kind of a records, first you have to register a domain name. Some people might say like, I purchased the domain name. Nobody can purchase the domain name. They only can register the domain name from 1 to 10 years tenure. After that, they have to renew. You can decide whether you would like to register for 1 year, 2 years, or 10 years. So how to register is, to register the domain name, we have to rely on domain registrar. There are n number of domain registrars are there. You can go to any registrar and you can register your domain name. And you can say that every domain name is a unique. No two people will get the same domain name. So now who is going to maintain all these domain names as a unique? There is one organization called ICANN. ICANN. So this is the organization which is going to maintain every domain name as a unique. Under this ICANN, there are multiple registrars available. Let us say registrar 1, 2, 3, 4. Let us say you might go to the one registrar 1 and you can purchase one domain name. I can go to registrar 4 and I can purchase the domain name. But how they will maintain, let us say you are looking for abc.com and I am also looking for abc.com. You purchased the abc.com from the domain registrar 1, so that the other registrars should not allow anybody to purchase the same domain name, right? That's why whenever a domain name got registered, they will update in the centralized database, so that no other registrar can register the same domain name for a different people. And these domain names are available on a chargeable basis, not only on AWS. There are different types of what we call that registrars available in the market, like GoDaddy, Namecheap, BigRock. These are all the different domain registrars available. You can go to any registrar and you can register your domain name. So domain registrar is a service which will allow the users to register a domain name. To register a domain name like abc.com. For you guys, just you can ignore that. No need to purchase a domain name and no need to do the practicals. Just you have to know what exactly it is and how it works. If I purchase the domain name like abc.com, or already I have a domain name, let me use that one here. Let us say we are going to register this domain name. Assume that I already registered and I have a server in which my website is running, and the IP address of that server is 1.2.3.4. Now, if any user try to access awsclasses.com, how should their request will be redirected to the IP address? To maintain that information, we are going to maintain DNS manager, DNS server, DNS manager, whatever it is. That is called as domain naming system or service. Both are same. Domain naming system. So what is this domain naming system is? DNS will maintain the information about the domain name as records. There are different types of records available. Each and every record will maintain information about a specific requirement. So first thing, we have to know about some default records. There are 2 default records available for every domain name. And where all these records will be available is, there is a concept called hosted zone. Hosted zone is a container which contains the information about a specific domain. So you can create one hosted zone like abc.com. That container contains the information about abc.com only. It doesn't maintain any other domain's information. If you have 10 different domain names, you have to maintain 10 different hosted zones. That hosted zone contains the information about that specific domain name only. So here, there are two different types of hosted zones available. One is a public hosted zone and one is a private hosted zone. In Route 53, there are two types of hosted zones available. One is a public hosted zone. The information will be available for everyone. Whatever the information you store in the public hosted zone, that is visible to everyone. Whereas the private hosted zone is only for internal purpose. The information will be available only from a specific VPC. While you are creating a private hosted zone, you have to mention that from which VPC the information should be accessible. That is only for maintaining your internal applications or internal communication only. 99%, whenever you are hosting a website or a web application, we will use the public hosted zone only. And these hosted zones are also not available for free. You will be charged for every hosted zone you create. If you create 10 hosted zones, you will be charged like 10 times, like 10 into $2. Every hosted zone is available at $2 per month. Every month you will be charged like $2. Okay. So whenever you create a hosted zone, there are some default records. Simple thing is hosted zone contains records. Hosted zone contains records. The record contains the information about the particular domain name. So first, let us talk about default records. So default records are, the first one is NS and the second one is SOA. These two are the default records. We don't create it and we should not delete them. They will be created automatically, which will contain the information about your domain naming system. Let us say you purchased one domain name and you are maintaining the information somewhere in the DNS server. Okay, I will show you in a clear way. So let us say here we have a domain registrar. We have a domain registrar where we can purchase the domain name. Let us say you purchased AWS classes.com by paying some money. Now, to maintain the information in the DNS server, there will be a DNS server where you have to create all the information. And here we created the hosted zone, right? That will be available here, hosted zone, in which you will maintain all the information about your AWS classes.com. Now, whenever a user try to access AWS classes.com, this domain registrar should send the information to the DNS server, right? So now the thing is, whenever you create a hosted zone, it will create NS and SOA. NS means naming server, in which DNS server the information is available. So based on this DNS server, your domain registrar identifies that the information about the AWS classes.com is getting updated in this particular DNS server. SOA stands for start of authority. That is required or that is responsible to start your hosted zone or to maintain your hosted zone. If you delete that SOA record, you cannot maintain the information about your domain name. So we never delete or we never modify. Those two are the default records. So NS record contains the information about the DNS server in which the records are available. Somewhere it has to be created, right? That will be maintained using the NS record. SOA stands for Start of Authority. And this is responsible to maintain the hosted zone up and run. Those two are the default records. We don't create them and we don't delete them. And then we have the other records, the manual or custom records, which we have to create as per the requirement. Those are, the first record is called as host record, in which we have two different types of records. One is A record and the second one is 4 years. And then C name, alias, and MX. These are the most commonly used records. And you can ignore the D also, but the three, A, B, and C are most commonly used records for any kind of a web application or website. So first, let us talk about the host record, which is A. Let us talk about the host record, which is A record. The A record is used to redirect the traffic from domain name to an IP version 4 address. Example is awsclasses.com 1.2.3.4. So that is my actual server IP address on which my website is running. So to point or to allow any user to access my website, I have to create the host record. There is no doubt in that. But depending on the IP address to which it is getting pointed, you have to select either A or 4 A's. If the IP address is IP version 4, then you have to use the A record. If the IP address is IP version 6, then you have to use the 4A records. So 4A record is used to redirect the traffic from domain name to an IP version 6 address. So whenever the user types awsclasses.com in the browser, using the A record, the request will be forwarded to this. Using the 4A records, the request will be forwarded to the IP version 6. And then the C name. C name is also called as canonical name. C name is also called as canonical name. C name can be used to redirect the traffic from one domain name to another domain name. So we are the owners of the awsclasses.com. I think this example you can write down like this. This is the domain name, this is the record type, and this is the value. For IP version 6 also same, awsclasses.com. The record type will be so here IP version 6 address. That is like 128-bit hexadecimal number. CNAME can be used to redirect the traffic from one domain name to another domain name. That means I am the owner of the AWS classes.com and I would like to redirect whatever the traffic is coming to AWS classes.com to abc.com. Because earlier I used to have AWS classes.com and I updated my domain name with a new domain name. But still, there are few people who are accessing to the AWS classes.com and I don't want to mess up with the things. So I can create like this. What will happen here is whenever a user types AWS classes.com, the request will be automatically redirected to abc.com. But they can't see that the request is going to abc.com. They can see only AWS classes.com in the front end. But in the back end, the request will go to abc.com. And finally, we have alias record. What is the meaning of alias generally? Alternative, right? Okay. So this alias record is used to redirect the traffic from one domain name to AWS resource. Let us say on AWS, we have a load balancer running. Load balancer will have a DNS name, right? The load balancer name will be something like a complex name. It don't represent your organization name or something, right? Which is having some numbers, letters, and all the things. But we never allow any user to access our website using some random domain names. What we do, the load balancer is a part of AWS, which is an AWS resource. So we have to use the alias record to point the AWS classes.com, like AWS classes.com. And we have to use alias record and application load balancer DNS name or S3 endpoint URL or S3 static website name. You can use any AWS resource name so that the users can see AWS classes.com only, but in the backend, the request will be redirected to the load balancer because the load balancer doesn't have any IP address, right? So you cannot create a record. In that case, you can use the alias record. And the last record is MX. MX stands for mail exchange. So generally we don't maintain that, but sometimes if your organization is using their own mail server or something, they will provide you the details like what kind of record to be created. Just you have to create it. MX record is used to point or is used to maintain the mail server details. Without having an MX record, there will be no mail service running. You must create the MX record. Might be you are using the mail service from Google, or you might be using the mail service from Microsoft. So they will provide you the value and the name. Using the name and value, you have to create the MX record in your domain name. Okay. So now, how to register a domain name? Okay. And one more thing, why Amazon is maintaining the name as Route 53? What is the reason behind that number 53? DNS service will run on port number 53. Like websites will run on ATN 443 ports. RDP will run on 3389. In the same way, the DNS service will run on port number 53. Hence, AWS is naming this service as AWS name this service as Route 53. That is the reason behind the number 53. Okay. So we don't register any domain name, but I will show you how to register. Let us say you are already having a domain name registered on GoDaddy or something. Can we transfer that domain name from the other registrar to Route 53? Yes, you can. You can transfer, you can register a new domain. Everything is possible. So first, we will see how to register a domain name. Register a domain name. Wait. Before that, I have to mention that the Route 53 is a global service. It doesn't belong to a region. That is a global service. What are the global services we have covered as of now? IIM is the global service. CloudFront is the global service. And the Route 53 is a global service. These are the three global services which we have covered as of now. Okay. So now let us see how to register a domain name using Route 53. Then we will see how to create, let us say, example, awsclasses.com. Already I registered, so nobody can register that again. Just I will show you how to register. And then to maintain the information about this domain, we have to create a public hosted zone. Create a public hosted zone for awsclasses.com. Then we can discuss about the records. We will see how to create the records, what are the different types of records available, and all the things. Okay, so first we will see how to register a domain name. If you would like to register a domain name, you have to pay the money instantly, then only the domain name will be registered. .com domains will have one kind of charges. .in or .org. Every type of a domain name will have a different charges. You can register for from 1 year to 10 years maximum. Okay, so first you have to log into your Amazon account, and then you need to type Route 53, which is a scalable DNS and domain name registration. Click on the Route 53 service. And you can see it is a global service. It is a global service. Okay, so on the left side, you have to click on registered domains under the domain section. Click on registered domains. Generally in your account, you can see 0. Generally you can see 0. Already here I registered domain name, and you can see it is going to expire on March 25th, 2023. If I need, I can enable auto renew so that that will be automatically renewed at March 25th. Okay. Now we would like to register a domain name. Before that, what if you are already having a domain name in a different registrar? You can use the transfer domain, and you can type like a google.com, but we cannot do that because they will lock it. So then it will check that is it transferable or not. You can see it is a cannot be transferred because it was locked. So if you are the owner of the google.com, you have to go to that google.com registrar and you have to unlock it. Then this Route 53 will send an email to the registered email address of the google.com website. Whoever registered that, they will have some kind of official email, right? To that email, it will send one email link. If they click on that link, then automatically the domain will be transferred from their registrar to your Route 53 account. Then you will become the owner of that particular domain name. Now, if you would like to register a new domain name, click on the registered domain here. And here you have to type whatever you would like to register. Let me try for google.com. Click on check. And it will check for the availability. And it is showing that, wait, what happened? Let me use something else. it is showing like unavailable. That means someone already registered. Or let me check for yahoo.com. It is also registered by someone and you cannot register it. But they are showing some alternative suggestions. You can go for this or something. So what you have to do is, if this is your required domain name, if it is available at the action, you can see add to cart like this. You have to click on that. And you can select how many years you would like to register. Click on continue. And here you have to fill all the details, and then you will receive one email link. So by clicking on that, you have to make the payment. Once you make the payment, in the Route 53, you can see one domain name as a registered domain name in your account, like what you can see here. So if you go to the registered domains, you can see a domain name like this. Once the domain name is there, you have to go to hosted zones, which is on the right side at the top. You have to click on that. And then already there is a hosted zone available. You have to click on create hosted zone, and you have to create some hosted zone for that, like public or private. If you create the public, whatever the records you maintain, those records are available for everybody. If you would like to allow the website from anywhere, they should access the website using the domain name, right? If you create as a private, the IP address information is not visible for anybody. So you have to create public hosted zone. Select the public hosted zone and you have to click on create. What if you select the private hosted zone? Then it will ask you like from which VPC you would like to allow the connection. Let me select Northern Virginia. Just I will show you, so that it will ask you to select a VPC. So this private hosted zone information is only available for this VPC. Once you click on create hosted zone, you will get a hosted zone like this. And if you click here, you can see there are two default records available. One is a NS record and the second one is a SOA record. And you can see that this is a public. And in the NS record, you can see there are 4 values are there. That means whatever the records I create on this hosted zone, those information will be stored on 4 different DNS servers. For high availability, they will maintain the records across multiple DNS servers. And the SOA record is used to maintain your, what we call that, your hosted zone is up and run. If you delete it, it will not work. If you delete that record, it will not work. That's why they don't allow you to delete the record. Even if you go for NS, you cannot delete that, because those 2 are default records. Okay, right. So now while creating these records, there is a concept called routing policy. Whenever you create the records, those records will have different types of routing policies available. The way how the traffic should be redirected. So I can say that record routing policies. So the first one is a simple routing policy. Second one is a weighted routing policy, or weighted or weight based, both are same. The third one is failover. Multi-answer or multi-value. Both are same, multi-value or multi-answer. And the last one is geolocation. So we will discuss about each and every routing policy. Simple routing policy will redirect all the traffic to a single IP address. That is the routing policy which we use most of the time. We don't use all these things. If you go for other DNS servers, apart from the Route 53, you cannot see all these type of routing policies. Just Route 53, AWS is providing different types of routing policies. What is this simple routing policy is, the simple routing policy will redirect all the traffic to a single destination, that is IP address, single destination, like awsclasses.com will point always a single IP address. So if 1,000 users are trying to access awsclasses.com, 1,000 people will be connected to here. If 10,000 people are trying to access a website, all the 10,000 people will be connected to the same IP address. So to practically verify, what we do is create one Linux EC2 instance in Northern Virginia region and host a simple website. As we are hosting a website, it must require an elastic IP, right? So assign elastic IP address also, because whenever you stop and start the instances, if the IP address got changed, the users will be redirected to a wrong IP address. So that what we do, we will point awsclasses.com domain name to the IP address, so that if you type awsclasses.com in the browser, the users are able to access the website. No need to type the public IP or something. Okay. Then let us create, okay, we will do this later. So what I do is quickly, I will create one Linux instance. I will host a simple website in which I can say, welcome to server 1. Okay. So I think everybody knows about like how to create the EC2 instance and host a website. So you can go back to the EC2 topic for the detailed steps on like how to host a website. So let me click on launch instances. So I will say the name as server 1, or I can say website 1. I will select Amazon Linux 2, Linux 2 AMI t2.micro, key pair name, yep, this one. Let me select an existing security group, which will allow HTTP traffic and SSH. So instance is getting created. So while it is getting created, I will launch 2 more instances. I can say create 3 Linux EC2 instances, because we need 2 more for the different routing policies. We will create all at once. So I can say website 2 t2.micro. What I do is on all the 3 servers, I will use a different web page. Like on first server, I can say welcome to website 1. On second server, I will use welcome to website 2. On the third server, I will use welcome to website 3. Because later we need to know that to which website the user got connected. Okay, that's why I will use a different pages. t2.micro, EFS, and select existing. And for all these, we need the elastic IP address, right? Always it is recommended to assign the elastic IP address. But once you're done with the practical, you're responsible to release all the elastic IP addresses. Okay. So let me get the elastic IP addresses also. Allocate elastic IP. Let me use some tags also. Name, website 1. Let me allocate 2 more for website 2 and website 3 also. Name, website 2. Let me allocate one more. Name website 3. Just for easy identification. Okay, we got all the 3 elastic IP addresses. Let me assign these IP addresses to all the AC2 instances. Website 1, actions, associate. And here I will select website first server, associate. And then I will select the second IP address for the second server. Website 2, associate. And then website 3, third IP address. So we got all the servers ready and we have to log into all the 3 servers and we need to host a website, right? Let me host the basic websites on all the 3 servers so that we can start testing the creation of the records and how the websites are accessible. Okay, so quickly I will do that. Let me go to the website server 1. I will use EC2 instance connect so that it will be easy. So I think you guys know like how to install the website, right? The same steps you can follow. Okay, we logged in. So let me switch to the root user, yum update. While we are doing, if you have any question, just you can ask me, because without a domain name register, you cannot do the practical. The only alternate way is you can create a private hosted zone. Instead of using the laptop, you can create one more Windows EC2 instance in the VPC, and you can use that Windows EC2 instance as a laptop. That is only possible for the practice without registering a domain name. Okay, right. So now we need to install the web server. And then we need to start the service HTTPD start. What happened? Okay, typing mistake. Service HTTPD start. Okay, and then chk config HTTPD on. Then what else we have? We need to create the web page. For that, we have to go to /var www.html. So here we have to use vi index.html. I will say welcome to the website 1. Press escape :wq, enter. So we are done. Let me check the website is accessible or not. That should be accessible first, right? With IP address. Yes, welcome to the website. The same process I will repeat on the website 2 and website 3 also. I mean the servers 2 and 3. Just give me a sec. I will quickly do that. Okay, so now let me start the service. Service HTTPD start. Wait, it seems it got failed. We haven't installed, right? Without installing, I'm trying to start the service. Okay, service HTTPD start, then chk config HTTPD on. That's it. So now we have to check the website is accessible or not. For the website 2, this is the, wait, is that the IP address? Website 2. Okay. Why? What is the reason? We installed, but we haven't created the web page, right? We have to create the index.html. So vi space index.html. So here I will say, welcome to the server. Sorry, what we are doing? Website, right? Welcome to the website 2. Okay, now the user will get the website. Website 2. Copy. On the 3 servers, just we are hosting a simple websites. So now let me go to the website, third server, and let me host a simple website. Connect. So what exactly we are doing is, we created 3 servers, and all the 3 servers are having 3 different IP addresses, right? 1, 2, and we have the third one. 1, 2, and 3. They are having a websites like website 1, website 2, and website 3. So let us get the IP addresses also. Okay, let me install that. Install HTTPD. Okay. So the third server, welcome to the website 3. What is the third server? Let me note down all the IP addresses of all the servers. Website 1, 3.218, 3.218.215.140. Is that correct? Yes. And then website 2, 44.197.83.164. And what is the third server IP address? 44.209.12.130. Right? So now here we have the AWS classes.com domain. Right? This, let us say this is the DNS server, which is nothing but a hosted show. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to create a simple record, right? Record type will be simple. Routing policy is simple. That means we can create awsclasses.com to this using the A record. Why A record? This is the IP version 4. In this case, whenever a user types awsclasses.com, the user will be connected to this IP address. That is what the A record is. In that A record, we are using simple routing policy, right? Okay. So now what we do is create A record for awsclasses.com to point what is IP address? To point using simple routing policy. So how it looks like? awsclasses.com, then A, then simple, then this one. This is how it looks like. The record will looks like in this format. If any user types awsclasses.com in the browser, it will check for A record and it will get the IP address and the user will be connected to that particular IP address. So now we haven't created any records, right? What will happen if I type awsclasses.com in the browser? What will happen if I type awsclasses.com in the browser? My request will go to the registrar and the registrar will say that the information is available in this hosted zone. So the request will come to this hosted zone. But in this hosted zone, there is no A record, right? So then it cannot get the value for awsclasses.com. So it is unable to open the website which we are running. You can see like this also, awsclasses.com. And you will get page not found error because there is no value for that particular domain name. If you create some value like creating a record, then it will get the IP address and this request will be automatically forwarded to that particular IP address. Now we are going to create this record using simple routing policy. Okay. So now how to create the A record? Go to Route 53. Assume that you have multiple domain names available. So you can see, if you click on the hosted zones, you can see there are n number of hosted zones available. For every domain, you can see a hosted zone for the domain name, like abc.com, xyz.com, google.com. Like that, you can have multiple hosted zones. And this is our required hosted zone. Click on that. And here you can see an option called create record. And the record name, what I have to type here? What I have to type here? Let us say if I type ABC, then what will happen? The name will become abc.awsclasses.com. But what is the required name? awsclasses.com, right? So if you don't type anything here, then the name will become awsclasses.com. If you type something here, then that will be 123.awsclasses.com. Generally, when we use this box is if you would like to use some kind of a blog. And if you would like to allow access like blog.awsclasses.com, then you have to use the subdomain feature. Otherwise, leave this blank. And what type of record you would like to use? A record. You can see A record is route traffic to an IP version 4 address. And 4AS is to an IP version 6. C name, it will route traffic to another domain name. MX specifies mail servers. Okay. And now let me select A record. So here you have to enter the IP address. If you select this, that will become alias record. If you switch on this one, it will become alias record and it will ask you to which AWS resource you would like to point the traffic. If you switch on this, that will become alias record. If you turn off it, that will be A record. So here you have to enter the IP address. Don't use any additional spaces. And then TTL. What is this TTL? Time to live. That means if you create for the first time and the second time, if you modify the value, that will take this much time to update the value across all the public DNS servers across the globe. Because I might use my internet service provider DNS. You might use your internet service provider DNS. Whatever the value I create in this, that has to be replicated across all the DNS servers across the globe. That will take this much time. Default is 5 minutes. Even if it don't update within 60 seconds, don't worry, because your ISP might using 300 seconds as a default TTL. So routing policy, these are the different routing policies available. Okay, you have to select simple routing and then click on create records, and the record is getting created. So now if you try to access awsclasses.com, the request will be forwarded to this IP address on the backend, and whatever the website running on this IP address will be visible to the users. But it will take some time because we selected TTL as a 60 seconds, right? Okay. So if I refresh, and even you can check from mobile phone or somewhere, and there is a command that if I go to CMD command prompt, if I type ns lookup space the domain name, you can see the IP address of that particular domain. If I hit enter, it is showing request timeout. That means still the name is not yet updated in my ISP's DNS server. But there is some public Google DNS servers are there. If I query again as the DNS server, I will get the value. So the IP address of the Google's DNS server is 8.8.8.8. If I do that, you can see this is the IP address which we created, right? But it seems whatever the internet I am using, my ISP's TTL might be 300 seconds. So it will take that much time to replicate, but the Google will update immediately. Or even my ISP is not able to provide the details immediately. But if you open the mobile phone and if you type awsclasses.com, your ISP might update that instantly and you might be able to access the website. So still I'm not able to get, just can you please check from your mobile phone and let me know that you are able to access or not. Yes, because whatever the ISP I'm using, their DNS server is going to be late or something. But after 5 minutes, definitely that will be updated, because first time we are creating, right? From the second time onwards, the same TTL will be updated across all the DNS servers across the globe, and they will check every 60 seconds if there is any change or not. So from the second time onwards, automatically you can get. Only for the first time, it will take some time, and then onwards, that will be updated within 60 seconds. Okay, right. This is how the simple routing policy works. This is the most commonly used routing policy. And what is the second routing policy? What is the second routing policy? Weighted routing policy. So in the weighted routing policy, you can redirect the traffic based on the weightage. A kind of a load balancing, but that this will not work in the same way. So while you are creating the record, I can say weighted routing policy. Weighted routing policy. So the traffic will be distributed across multiple servers based on the weightage. I can say that the weightage of the first server should be 40, not percentage, 40 just a number. And here I can say 30. And here I can say 30. This is called as a weightage. Based on the weightage, Amazon will calculate the percentage of the request to be redirected to all these servers. This number you can select from 0 to 255. If you mention 0, that will have a 0 weightage. No user will be connected to that server. So the valid values are from 1 to 255. So here for the server 1, what is the percentage? What is the percentage? Let us say out of 100, you got 60 marks. What is the percentage? How you calculate? The marks you got by total marks, right? So here, what is the total weightage here? 40 plus 30 plus 30. So total weightage is 100. And what is the weightage of the server 1? 40. So that will be 40%. This will be calculated by AWS Route 53. So based on these values, the percentage weightage of the first server is 40%. This will be 30%, and here it will be 30%. The meaning of that is, if 100 people are trying to access awsclasses.com, 40 people will be connected to server 1, 30 people will be connected to server 2, and the 30 people will be connected to server 3. That is the weightage, how the traffic will be distributed. Okay, right. So now here we will write down about the weighted policy or weight-based routing policy. Weighted routing policy. The traffic will be redirected across multiple endpoints or multiple endpoints. It can be IP address or whatever it is. Based on the weightage of the servers. Weightage can be from 0 to 255. 0 indicates no weightage. That means no user will be connected to that server. Okay. So now what we do is, let us create a record for awsclasses.com using weighted policy as mentioned below. But if already a record is existing, you cannot create another a record. If you create 2 a records, it will get confused, right? To which a record to be used. So you have to create only 1 a record. So to create that a record using the weighted policy, you have to delete the existing a record. Okay, let me delete that a record first. Whatever the a record existing. And give me a second. Let me change my network settings so that my computer should use Google's DNS, so that we can get that updates immediately. No need to wait for a lot of time. Just give me a second. So that my computer will use the Google's public DNS server instead of my ISP's DNS server. Okay, so first we have to delete the existing one, right? This is the one old one, simple routing policy. So here you can see awsclasses.com is record name, type is A, routing policy is simple, differentiator nothing, and value is this one. Now what we have to do is, we have to create in the same way awsclasses.com and then a record and then weighted and 40 3.218 40.215.140. The 40 is the weightage. And you have to create AWS classes.com. Website 2, the second server IP address. This will be 30. This is how we are going to create. For a record, we are using the weighted routing policy so that it will allow to create multiple A records. And we are giving the weightage with 40, 30, 30. Server 1, 40% of the users will be connected. Server 2, the 30% of the people will be connected. And server 3, the other 30% of the people will be connected. So first we have to delete the existing A record, right? So how to delete the record is select the record, and here you can see a delete record option. Click on that and delete. Now we need to create a record using the weighted routing policy. So click on create record. And first we have to create for the server 1. Leave this record name blank, record type A. Value is the IP address of the website 1. I will select TTL as 60. Routing policy, I will select weighted. Weightage, what is the weightage for the website 1? 40. Health check ID is optional. And here I can say, you can use some name for identification purpose, website 1. Click on create records. One record is getting created. We have to create 2 more records, right? Okay. So let me click on create record. A. Here I have to enter the IP address of the second server, second website. TTL is 60. Weighted. Weight is 30. And the name website 2. Can I create a third record also at the same time? Yes. Click on add another record. Here you have to enter the third IP address. Record type 60 seconds. Routing policy weighted. Weightage should be 30. And record ID is website 3. And click on create records. So totally we created 3 records, right? It will take 60 seconds to update. You have to wait for 60 seconds. We created the first second 60 seconds ago. So that will be updated automatically, I think. So if I do a refresh, I will be connected to website 1. But the 2 and 3 will get updated in some time. They will get updated in some time. So if you start using like different people are getting accessed, they will be connected to different websites. So I got connected to website 1, right? If you're using the same awsclasses.com, you might get connected to website 2 or website 3. So you can check that from your mobile also, because if I access from the same server, it might be considered as the same connection and it might connect me to the same server. If I try access from my mobile, I got website 2. I got connected to website 2. So you might got connected to 3, 1 or randomly, but it will follow some rule like 40% of the request will be to the first server, 30% of the users will be connected to server 2, and the other 30% of the request will be connected to server 3. That's how it will follow. Okay, right. So in the same way, let us discuss about the other routing policies also. I think it would be good if you try to create the failover routing policy also. What is the failover? In the failover routing policy, there will be 2 records exist. One is a primary record and the second one will be a secondary record. Always the users will be connected to primary. Whenever the primary fails, the user will be connected to secondary. So here, ignore this one. Assume that there is no third server. So we are talking about what we call that failover routing policy. There is no weightage. There is no weightage. Okay. So in the failover routing policy, there will be two things. One is primary and the other is secondary. Okay. Always the users will be connected to the primary only. In case of failure of the primary, then the users will be connected to secondary. But now the question is, how this how this Route 53 or the hosted zone identifies that the primary is down. It should identify, right? The primary is not healthy. For that, you have to create a health check. Health check is mandatory for the primary record. So continuously, it will monitor whether the primary is healthy or not. If the primary is healthy, automatically the users will be connected to the primary server. Whenever the primary is unhealthy, automatically the users will be connected to the secondary server. Okay, that's how the failover routing policy works. So failover routing policy contains two records. One is primary record and the other is secondary record. The users will be connected to the primary and they will be redirected to the secondary if the primary fails. If the primary fails. And the hosted zone monitor the health of the primary record using the health check. And health check is mandatory for the primary record. Health check is mandatory for the primary record. For the secondary, that's optional. For the secondary, that's optional. So to create a failover routing policy, first we have to create the health check, right? Without having a health check, you cannot configure or you cannot create the record using failover routing policy. So first what we do is create a, or wait a second. So our goal is create a record using the failover routing policy. So first step should be create health check to the primary record. And the second one is create a record using failover routing policy as below. So here how it looks like is AWS classes A, and here you can see failover, and here you can see primary. Give me a second. This is the primary, right? And then it should be like this, and it will be secondary. And the secondary, I will use the website too. This is how the record looks like. But before creating this records, you have to create the health check, right? We will see how to create the health check. So which IP address we are using as a primary? The website 1 we are considering as a primary. So you have to create the health check for the primary record. Health check is mandatory for the primary record. But we don't use all these things in the real time. We will use a simple record only for the 99%. Always we will use, because for this failover and all the things, we have a concept called load balancing, right? We will depending on that load balancer concepts. We don't use these routing policies. Always we will use simple routing policy. But for understanding purpose or for certification point of view, you have to know about these routing policies. At least you should know about each and every routing policy theoretically. You must know like how it works and what is the purpose. Okay, so first let us go with creating a health check for the primary record. So go to your Amazon Route 53 service. And on the left side at the top, you can see there is one option called health checks, right? Click on the health checks. Click on create health check. Name. You can use any name. No need to mention .com and all the things. You can use any name. So I will use AWS classes.com. .com is not mandatory. .com is not mandatory. Just you can use your name also. But for identification purpose, always we will create using the names. And what to monitor? I would like to monitor an endpoint. That means I would like to monitor the website which is running on server 1. Select the endpoint. And I would like to monitor the endpoint using the IP address. Select IP address and specify endpoint by. And protocol is HTTP because my website is running on a HTTP protocol. And what is the IP address of the server or the IP address of the website? This is the IP address of the website, right? Mention that IP address here. Host name, you can ignore that. And where the website is running on 80 port. Select the port as 80 and click on advanced configuration and request interval. With how much interval you would like to monitor. Standard is a free, fast is available on additional charges. If you select fast, every 10 seconds your website will be monitored for the health status, but it is available on some extra cost. That is not a free. Failure threshold 3, or let me go with 2. That means continuously, if the website on primary is not accessible, then it will consider that the website is not healthy. And don't modify anything, just scroll down to the bottom and click on next. You can check what is the charges for the health check. You can see here. Because I selected fast interval, obviously I will be eligible for some additional charges. Click on next. Would you like to create some alarm? If you want, you can, but I don't want to do that. Create health check. So that it will start monitoring the health of the primary server. But initially the status will be unknown. It will take 2 times, right? So 20 seconds, it will take maximum 20 seconds to update the status of the health. So we will wait still the status is healthy or unhealthy. What is the status? Healthy, because the website is running. Okay. Now let us create the A record using the failover routing policy. Go to hosted zones. But before creating that, you have to remove the existing A records using the weighted routing policy. Because you cannot create the same record using different types of routing policies. Let me select, delete the A records. Okay. So now we need to create, click on create record. Record name blank, IP address of the primary. TTL 1 second, routing policy to be failover. Failover record type primary, because this IP address to be the primary website. Health check ID, you can select. It is not showing optional here, right? Because that is a mandatory. Record ID, I can say primary server. You can use any name, that doesn't matter. Let me add another record also for the secondary record. Click on add another record. IP address of the secondary server. routing policy failover record type secondary, and it is showing optional. Health check is not mandatory. I will say secondary and click on create records. 2 records will be created. Even though there are 2 records available, always we will be connected to the primary only. Just wait for 60 seconds at least, and then we will try to access. And we are connecting to website 1. Even you can check from different machines or from different locations also. Yeah, website 1 I'm connecting to. So while the website is the server 1 is healthy, the website on the primary server is healthy, everybody will be connected to the website 1 only. Now what I do is I will shut down the website 1. That means we are making the primary as unhealthy. Right? If I stop it, the health check will fail. The health check will fail. Let me go to the health checks. Again, it will take 20 seconds or so, 10 plus 10. And it will mark the status as unhealthy. And automatically the awsclasses.com will redirect all the users to the healthy server, that which is secondary server. You can start seeing welcome to website 2. So wait a second. You can see already connection refused. Right? You can see already connection refused. So definitely you can see, don't worry if it not get updated here. In the backend, that will be updated as unhealthy. Or you can do a control F5 or hard refresh the page. Definitely you can get the status as unhealthy. And if I go there and if I refresh, we can start seeing website 2. That will not take that much time. Within 10 seconds, it will identify. Sometimes in the UI, it will take some time to update in the health check. But you can see the website 2 is accessible. You can check from different machines, different browsers. Everybody will be connected to the website 2 only. Now, what if the website 1 back online? What will happen if the primary is back online and if it is healthy? Automatically, the users will be connected to the website 1 only. That's automated. We don't do anything, so that you can avoid the failovers. I mean, you can avoid the failures and you can maintain the high availability. But we have a load balancer concept to handle this kind of high availability, right? That's why we don't use these kind of records. The load balancer will provide the high availability and as well as load balancing also. That is the reason always we will use what we call that load balancer, application load balancer. Okay, let me go there and let me check the health status. It is showing unhealthy, right? It took some time to update here, but in the backend, it will automatically update. You can start seeing the status is okay. At what time it is? 2:04 p.m. 2:04 is like 7:34 India time. Just 1 minute back. You can refresh. And if I select last failed check, when was the last failed check? That is also at 2:04, like 7:34:37. 7:34:37. View current status at 7:35. It is okay. If I do refresh here, might be it might take some time here, but if you go back and if you do a control F5, you should be able to connect to the website 1. Because it's back online. Always the users will be connected to the primary and the users will be redirected to the secondary in case of failure of the primary. But while the primary is healthy, the secondary server is not utilized, right? That's the reason we will use application load balancer. So if the primary is healthy, the traffic will be distributed across both the servers. In case of failure of any server, all the users will be redirected to the healthy server. That's how you can utilize all the servers or services effectively by distributing the load across all the healthy servers. That's the reason whenever you create the records in the Route 53, always we will use simple routing policy only. Just we covered 3, right? We have a 3 more and one new one, which is IP based. Those things we will cover in the tomorrow's session, which will not take more than 30 minutes or so. We will complete Route 53 and then we will take some questions. Like if you have any questions, like while you're doing the practicals, if you got any questions, we can take those questions in the tomorrow's session. Because the Route 53 can be done within 30 minutes. It will not take more than that much time. Okay. So just come up with your questions or the errors which you are facing in the practicals. Okay. Right. So before closing the session, are you guys clear on this Route 53 as of now or any questions? Okay, then wait a second. Okay, then thank you everyone. We'll continue tomorrow.